routes serving 34 locations, including 24 public schools, 5 private schools, 1 charter school, and 3 career centers. And we're going to pick up right where we left off. 101 bus routes serving 34 locations, 24 public schools, 5 private schools, 1 charter school, and 3 career centers. There are currently 10,864 students assigned for transportation within our department, and our team continues, even up to an hour ago, adding to that number. Students' bus stop information was made available in Power School on Wednesday, August 4th, and it is being recommended that the Board of Education approve the designated bus routes and bus stop locations for the 2021-2022 school year.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you to you and all of your staff. We know that this is a huge task that is laid to your charge every year, and you all just do a remarkable job to provide transportation for over 10,000 students on an annual basis. So thank you for all that you and your staff do.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
A quick question before Mr. Snyder goes back.
Okay.
President Bell stole the first thing I was going to say. Just we are really grateful for what you and your team do. I hope you take those words back to your folks and just really do let them know that. Second question is, do you want to put a little plug in for bus drivers? Do you want to advertise anything? You know, there's some people here that may because every school district I know needs bus drivers, right?
Absolutely.
Our
And I'll
buses
look right
are-
to the camera, wcsoh.org/drive. And with that, I will add, and thank you, board members, for your comments. Just before our exit gate, we put a banner up last year that said, or says, through this gate pass the finest drivers in the world. And we truly do believe that, and it is a team effort to accomplish what we do day in and day out. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 11. Oh, I'm sorry. May we please call the roll, Ms. Marshall?
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes. Now moving on to agenda item 11.02 with food services. And may I please have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. And Ms. Dennis, would you please share with us about food service for this upcoming year?
Oh, well, this evening I'm here. Good evening, President Bell, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg, and Mrs. Marshall. The item in front of you tonight is a recommendation that's related to adult meal prices, not student meal prices. I think that's important to point out. School program regulations require school food service authorities participating in the national school lunch and breakfast programs to ensure sufficient funds are provided for the nonprofit school food service account for paid meals. The reimbursements received from students' free and reduced meals may not subsidize the cost for paid meal prices, including adults. So based on the USDA's adult meal pricing tool calculations, the price of an adult lunch charged across the district must be at or above $3.95. The average price of an adult breakfast may be at or above $1.90 in order to be in compliance with this regulation. Westerville City Schools is currently not charging enough and needs to increase both breakfast and lunch adult meal prices. Our adult meal prices for the 2020-2021 school year were $3 for lunch and $1.50 for breakfast. So to meet compliance with this regulation, we need to increase the meal pricing to $4 at lunch and $2 at breakfast. So it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the recommended changes to $4 for lunch and $2 for breakfast for adult meal prices for the 2021-2022 school year.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'm going to vote yes, but do you want to say something about the lunch costs, et cetera, for our students, in case people haven't gotten the word? I know you've been putting the word out.
Absolutely. Who doesn't want to take an opportunity to say that our
Please.
kids in our district get to eat lunch and breakfast for free again this year? we're really excited about the opportunity. We've really vamped up our menus this year across all K through 12 buildings. It's really exciting. So we're looking forward to that opportunity to just feed kids without question. We are prepared. We are ready, adjusting to demands in the industry. So we bring on Thursday. We're ready.
I knew you would want to share that great news for all the kids in the district, so thank you. That's the only comment I had, President Bell.
Okay.
I want to thank you. We were thanking the bus drivers, transportation. I thanked John earlier. I also want to thank you and all of the team. I am really excited about what's going on in food service in this district. Last year was incredible with food service. The way food service stepped up, the way you handled that, managed that, dealt with that was beyond impressive. And now this year, you've got a different set of challenges, thank goodness. And what I am seeing is a real ramping up of our abilities as well as our desires to make sure not only are we able to feed the kids, but we're able to feed them things they want. And that's exciting stuff. I'm glad to see it. And thank you for all the information you've put out and for the new changes that are coming.
Thank you. We are really excited. We have, much like our drivers, we have the best staff in our food service department, and they have a lot of talents that we are really excited to get to utilize with some of these new offerings. So it's going to be a good year. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Velarde?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes, and that motion carries. Moving on to agenda item 12.01, public comments. Just a reminder that each speaker will have 5 minutes to address the board. Please remember that there will be a timer that will be displayed on the screen, and Mr. Hershiser will call time when 5 minutes has elapsed. And please address your comments to the board and not to the audience. Our first speaker this evening is Ms. Catherine Vidowick.
Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you guys tonight. My name is Katie Vidowick. I'm a mom of 3 children, 2 of which are in the school system currently. I'm a licensed independent social worker. Pre-COVID, I worked for a private mental health agency where I provided counseling in all 3 high schools here in Westerville to kids who had had lives filled with trauma. So mental health is one thing I do know. I'm sure you are all aware of the increase in suicides and mental health diagnoses in our youth since March of 2020. In fact, the CDC website states that in 2020, there was an increase in ER visits by 31% for suicide attempts by our children. COVID has been hard on us all, but our children have suffered the most. I'm here to implore you to take away the mask requirement and allow parents to decide what is best for their children. We all know that there are no 2 children alike, and what helps one hinders another, and masks are no different. Studies have been done on the impacts of facial expression. Facial expressions help people to develop develop empathy and build trust with others. When you take away someone's ability to read facial expressions, you severely limit their ability to know who they can trust. For those students who have suffered trauma, and there's many in this school district, I will say, it takes away their ability to know who is a trusting adult. And if they can find a trusting adult, it's been proven that that's the one main factor that can help heal their trauma long term. These students need to be able to see faces during the 6+ hours of school for their recovery and their healing process. When these students can determine who they can trust, and the way that they can see that one way is through facial expressions, then oftentimes students buy in and are more willing to cooperate in the classroom, which is what we all want, right? By forcing everyone to mask, you are increasing the chances of these students falling even more through the cracks than they already are. And science actually proves that smiles are contagious. Your goals is to create safe, nurturing, and an efficient learning environment. Well, more kids are now being diagnosed with mental health issues than have had COVID or have died of COVID. So based on numbers alone, this safety concern dominates COVID infection. The CDC director himself stated, there has been another cost that we've seen, particularly in high schools. We're seeing, sadly, far greater suicides now than we've seen deaths from COVID, end quote. Masks have been proven by many studies, on which can be found on PubMed, NIH.gov, that masks are only effective when they're worn correctly, changed frequently, removed properly, disposed of safely, and you use good hygiene. Now, I have children, and I worked with high school students, and do you know how often they touch their face? I mean, meeting these stipulations is impossible. And cloth masks, which most of us are all wearing, and what we put on most of our children to go to school, only provide marginal filtration because of the size of the virus particle, the leakage around the face, and they're not being changed frequently. Cloth masks can range from 40 to 90% instantaneous penetration of a virus. And this number only gets higher the fourth time that you wash a mask, which should be done daily. Another study found that moisture retention, reusing a cloth mask, and poor filtration actually increase the risk of infection. Another study found that virus positivity was significantly higher in mask samples when they were worn for 6 or more hours, and we all know we're in school for 6 hours. With safety being a main goal of ours here, we probably should look at these other studies instead of just following CDC guidelines, which seem to change very quickly. As I mentioned above, no two children or people are alike, so why are we wearing masks for everyone, especially for a virus that is survivable by 99.97% of us, and that number goes higher for children. One study interviewed tens of thousands of parents who were forced to mask during school. The parents reported 68% impairment because of irritability, headache, difficulty concentrating, less happiness, reluctance to even go to school, which is a big problem, malaise, impaired learning, drowsiness or fatigue, allergic skin reactions, and fungal disease around the mouth. So again, creating a safe, nurturing, and efficient environment to learn in, maybe we should consider this. Not every school has decided, but 93% of the ones who have decided have gone mask optional. And some of those school districts are just as large as Westerville. If families want to mask and vaccinate their children, they are fully supported to do so. But if parents want to decide something different, then we need to be fully supported as well. They are our children, and it's our choice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kathy Bowler.
Good evening, President Bell, members of the board, and Superintendent Kellogg. Before I begin my remarks, I'd like to say that it's exciting to start a new school year with in-person learning. But I'm not excited about the mask mandate. The health of my children is a top priority for me. I'm vigilant about their health and overall welfare, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, I've been even more vigilant. When there's a particular health situation for my children, I seek the expertise and recommendations of my doctor, but ultimately I make the decision. And that's why I think parents are in the best position to decide about their children wearing masks. I'm opposed to the district issuing a mask mandate to all students. The district is not in the best position to consider all the factors in the overall health and well-being of my child. That's why I'm asking for the district to make masks optional. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against masks. Masks may be necessary for some. Some children and adults will continue to wear masks. There are those who are at greater risk and should protect themselves. All I'm saying is that parents should make the decision for their children. What about the children who've received a vaccine? The district itself conducted vaccine clinics at the high schools. What about children who've had the virus and are protected with the antibodies? Parents are in the best position to decide if their child should wear a mask. And the following districts also have affirmed that decision: Dublin, Olentangy, Pickerington, Reynoldsburg, Southwestern, Upper Arlington. I'm asking this district to amend its position on masks and make them optional. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mindy Hall.
Hello, Dr. Kellogg and the Board of Education. I came here to thank you for mandating masks for all of the schools. I've lived in the community of Westerville for 24 years. I have grown to become a part of the community of Westerville, and I feel like Westerville is a part of me. And the only way for a community to exist is for everyone to work together. And in order to do that, we all have to compromise. And I see this as a way of doing that, cutting down the fear for many that many have coming back to school and working together. I feel like you are listening to the needs of many and are making a very difficult decision in the current climate. And I just applaud each of you for making that decision. And I want to just say that I support it wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Valerie Cumming.
Good evening. Thank you guys for hearing us out tonight. I just wanted to say that I'm the mother of 4 children who all attend Westerville City Schools. I currently serve on Westerville City Council and as Westerville's vice mayor. I bring up that only for context. My words, my views are my own. I'm not here representing any entity or person other than myself. But as a fellow elected official, I understand exactly how hard it is, what you're doing right now, and how you have to make difficult and sometimes unpopular decisions because they're the right thing to do. I know exactly how it feels, especially in an election year, to be criticized and maybe even threatened for those decisions. And that's why I'm so proud to be a Westerville parent tonight, because my children attend a district where the board puts its most sacred responsibility, which is the safety of our children, above all of the noise and minority opposition. And I sincerely thank you for that. Here's what we know. We know the Delta variant is real. We know it is spreading. It's affecting our children. Our schools are about to fill up with kids like my youngest who are too little to get the vaccine. We now have to send our kids back to school with nothing to protect them from a potentially deadly virus than a scrap of cloth. And there are those who would take even that protection away. So I would like to share something with you briefly. It's from the district's handbook, and it reads, quote, "Immodest or inappropriate clothing is prohibited." This goes on to include do-rags, halter tops, any clothing that exposes cleavage, the midriff, or the back. From what I understand, these rules exist to maintain a professional learning environment free from distractions. The last I checked, covering a child's back or midriff does not protect her or keep her safe, and yet we mandate that. So I guess I'm curious as to why, if my daughter has to cover her midriff so she doesn't distract someone's son from learning, he shouldn't have to wear a mask to keep my daughter alive. So once again, I would like to thank my colleagues on the board for their time, for their service, for their commitment, for making a decision that shuts out the noise and puts our children first. As a fellow elected official, you have my undying respect, and as a mother, my heartfelt gratitude. Thank you all.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jill Petru.
Hello, good evening. I'm the mother of 3. My oldest will be starting first grade at McVeigh, and I'm here to speak in support of the mask mandate. When I read the email last week that you had made a decision, I breathed a huge sigh of relief. So I commend you for this very difficult decision that I know you had to make. As I said, my son's going to be in first grade, and this is actually his first experience with Westerville City Schools. He was supposed to be in kindergarten last year at McVeigh, but at the last minute, my husband and I made the difficult decision to pull him. And that was because my husband and I were working parents, and we could not accommodate the hybrid schedule, the week on, the week off. I respect the decision that you made, and I think it was probably the right decision, but it just did not work for our family. So we decided to send my son to a preschool where his sibling attended. They had a kindergarten program there, and we were actually pleasantly surprised. They were able to maintain full in-person learning 5 days a week the entire school year, with the exception of a couple of weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I attribute that to the strict safety protocols that were put in place. They were required to wear a mask, they had temperature checks, they had a health questionnaire, and it was not a normal year by any means, but it was as normal as possible for my son, and I attribute that to the mask and to the safety protocols that were in place. So for us, we feel that the mask worked. And I'm hopeful that this year, with similar safety protocols in place, that my son and his classmates can have as normal of a year as possible. And as a parent, I would much rather have my child in school 5 days a week in a mask than at home doing virtual or hybrid, or like the bouncing back and forth on quarantine. So for me and my family, we feel that it's a small price to pay for safety, peace of mind, and a step toward returning to normalcy. So again, I commend you for your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker this evening will be Lori Kaiser.
Hello, my name is Lori Kaiser, and I am, it's all right, it happens all the time. Ask my kids. I am a parent. I've had leadership roles on 4 different PTAs. This is my 22nd year of being a parent of a student in Westerville City Schools. Yes, I am that old. And I want to share some thoughts that I've literally been scribbling down as I've been sitting here. I currently have students in Westerville North and Walnut Springs Middle School. They're active in the marching band and soccer and theater, and they are thrilled to be starting this school year with as normal of an extracurricular season as possible. Last fall was incredibly stressful. The schedules were fluid, practices were changed. Nobody really knew what was going to happen. We want to know that we're going to have our games, that we're going to have our practices, that we're going to have our rehearsals. I come here not just representing myself, but many of my fellow parent volunteers who are currently busy at all those extracurriculars tonight. I'm literally getting Facebook messages, go, say, speak for us, please. Our kids need to be in school full time. Last year's hybrid was very stressful for everyone, and I want those kids in school full time to have that effective learning. Low vaccination rates mean that our vaxxed population, which includes my 2 children, are still vulnerable to the highly transmissible variants that are currently in our community. So yes, I want my vaxxed child to be wearing a mask because I know that they can still get it and they can still transmit it. That has been determined. This summer demonstrated that people who should wear masks are not making that choice. What that means is that the people who should be safe with their vaccine are no longer safe because they're being exposed to variants that continue to become more transmissible. I've heard a couple of people say that Westerville City Schools is one of the few districts that are making this decision. I believe that we are demonstrating leadership by making this choice. Our school district is choosing to make the decision that's in the best interest of our children. Other districts may be less willing to take that stand, but that doesn't mean that they're doing the right thing. And I commend you all for taking that leadership with facing the heat of other districts not being willing to take that stand. The American Academy of Pediatricians on July 18th, because of the Delta variant and its spread, has recommended universal masking where it is at all possible, with the exception for students who have special needs that need to be accommodated. My understanding is that is exactly what we are doing here. We are doing universal masking, but we are also taking into consideration the students who truly can't wear masks. And finally, I want to say, and I've said this publicly, I've said it on Facebook, if wearing a mask in school allows our students to maintain an otherwise normal school year, this is the right and appropriate requirement to make at this time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker this evening is Peg Duffy.
The bad penny's back to haunt you again. When we talk about COVID protocol, we're talking about it from the adult perspective all the time. Now, I arrived partway through Dr. Kellogg's comments. I did hear some things that were looking more at the child. I don't think there's anybody in this room who's old enough to have been around in the summers of 40 and 50 with the polio problems. They were bad. So come with me in my time machine and recall, we're going back to 1949. I had just finished 4th grade. The summer before, we had moved about 50 miles from my father's employment. I was thrilled to be at this new school because I could walk to school. No longer did I have to ride a bus for half an hour. Three kids in a seat, and believe me, everybody had wool coats back then, and in the wintertime, wet wool coats smell like a pack of sheepdogs. I was thrilled to walk to school, and there was a girl who would walk with me. She had an older sister who taught her somewhat risque songs, and we would sing those as we went along. I remember leaving quarters in the pumpkin patch because the people who had the pumpkin patch didn't want to sell us pumpkins, and so we knew that we should pay them, so we left a quarter and took a pumpkin. By the end, the school I had gone to before did not have a paved playground. This one did. So by the end of the school year, I was the second best person playing jacks. Becky had taught me to play jacks. Summer came. Becky went to visit her grandmother in Pittsburgh, and she died of polio after 2 weeks. Fear. We'd had fear all the time, every summer. The older daughters of the people who operated the corner convenience store were our babysitters. Mary contracted polio. The kids across the street from me had been babysat by her, and so they were quarantined. So we played our Monopoly game, set it up at the edge of the street, and played Monopoly. Maybe not the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. If we wanted to go down the street and play with Peggy Muller's house, her mother had been a military nurse in World War II. And so you came down there, you went through, your temperature was taken, you did a batch of calisthenics, she made sure that you could move correctly before you could play with her kids. This went on, though, for the next couple of years. There was that constant fear. What is it going to be like in the summertime? And that's what I'm addressing, is the fear that kids can have from how we are handling this. My mother was a home economist and judged at county fairs. I went to more county fairs than I can count. While she would be judging pickles and cakes and girls in their 4-H roundup dresses, I was wandering, and the most fearful thing was going into the area where somebody was in an iron lung. If you've never seen that when you're a kid, it lives with you. Luckily, in my freshman year in high school, we were among the first to receive the Salk polio vaccine because we were only 35 miles from where Salk was doing his work. And it was nice to have that fear gone. The thing I want you to realize is I remember all of this 70 years later. And how we handle this and the fear that's left in the minds of these kids is going to be with them. So please think about, think about things from the kids' perspective. I think the district is doing it. Some of the parents have their reasons for objecting to the masks, but think about how your discussion of that at home is instilling fear in the kids. We don't want to leave them with fear.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ham Unick. I'm having trouble reading the handwriting. Is the UNAK is the last name? Okay. Next, we have Rich Unek. Same last name? Okay. Oh, okay. You can come. Okay. If you would like to, you could. Sure, absolutely. Sir, excuse me, it would have to be her. You have to sign up.
I'm sorry?
Yes, it would have to be you.
Oh, not me?
Correct.
Oh.
My apologies, I'm not dressed appropriately either, but it's good to meet all of you. I have 5 kids and 1 on the way. And I have 2 at North now, and I have 1 at Walnut Springs. I have another in preschool, and then obviously she's due next month, which we're very excited about. I am not wearing a mask today because I have an exemption. And I think about other people who have an exemption, and I've emailed about, those accommodations for those students who cannot wear a mask. My older 2 can, but my youngest cannot. And I was told that he just has to wear one until we get an approval on the exemption. The form, however, was being modified until this last Friday. It just came out, so I could finally get him into the doctor, so that way we could get something written out. But school, as you know, starts on Thursday. So my son, who is very anxious about wearing the mask, which he cannot, I'm unaware of what I should be doing as far as, do I send him without one so that way he can start school with the rest of his friends? Do I keep him home? So I would be curious, for those who can't wear a mask, who physically are not able to, what accommodations we have for those students, because we talked a lot about mental health today, and it hurts them to not be in school. All of my kids were virtual academy last year, and it was a disaster. They're all very good students, AB students, and they were C students maybe if we were lucky. And they are very excited to go back to school, and I'm excited to send them. The older 2 do not want to wear a mask, but as we've heard today, is students are willing to do whatever they need to do to get back in school. And I understand that masks are for some, and that's great, but they're not for everybody. We talked about our children, our choice, and if you all have kids, wouldn't you want to make that decision for your children instead of having someone else make that decision for them? It's a health decision. It's not, wear your pants long enough or short enough, or put your hair up or put your hair down. It's a health decision, and it affects everybody differently. And whether or not you believe that you should wear a mask, that should be your choice. Same with vaccines. Whether you decide to take a vaccine, that's great if you want to, but it's also great if you don't want to. And it hurts my heart that our children are even going through this. And I think about, I've been at Westerville for 5-6 years now, and it's a wonderful community. We're very involved. We have a lot of friends here, and my kids love it. And I pray that we, go in the direction of, greatness, and we continue that, and we allow everyone to make the decision based off of their family and their needs. And I do applaud you and know that you have tough decisions, and I understand that too, but I hope that you understand that us as parents, where we are also coming from. And yeah. So that was off the cusp. I appreciate you letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle Sip.
Just wanted to say to the board, thank you also as a parent to 3 students in the Westerville School District. I know this whole thing with the mask is obviously a hot topic for everyone. But, you know, considering everything that you've had to consider with data, and I did read through how you came to that decision, and I appreciate that you did put a lot of thought and effort looking at the data and getting recommendations from the scientific community in your decision. And I appreciate that, that approach. So I just wanted to make sure that our voice is heard as well, that we love Westerville. We've been here for quite a while now, and I was so inspired to see how our community has come together in really tough times. You all, I'm sure, know exactly what we're talking about here with the tough times that we had a few years ago with the officers, and it's just so amazing to see how supportive this community is in tough times. And I know that we will come together through this as well. And my kids, you know, they already expected the mask. They already know what to do. They have no problem with it. I think that they feel safer. I know my son feels so much safer that's in elementary with it. And, you know, I think about just the different perspectives that have been shared tonight. And I do appreciate the other parents that have different perspectives for coming and speaking as well. And I think that, you know, with everything considered, I am appreciative of this, especially when you think of others in our community that may have cancer, compromised immune systems, to where the mask and the children in the schools, it's not just about them, it's about all of us. And again, having this community and being so supportive of each other and really coming together to support everyone, I think is where we have to look, as far as it's not just about us, it's all of us. And again, just huge thank you to all of you for considering a lot of the data and looking at what the scientific community has recommended. So thank you for this.
Thank you. Our next speaker is, let's see, forgive me for mispronouncing your name. Is it Allison? Denias.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here and for hearing everyone's viewpoints. You know, I was listening to the different perspectives, and I thought back to last year when I saw a video of a little girl walking around to a faucet, and the man who was recording her said, "Oh, isn't that adorable? She thinks there's hand sanitizer in all the taps." And I was horrified by that. I've seen that children are terrified of giving germs to their grandparents and killing grandma and grandpa, spreading disease. They think they're disease-carrying vessels. And then, I don't know, about a month ago, I saw the movie Bird Box. I'll tie this all together here. But Bird Box, there's an invisible evil force that kills people unless you stay blindfolded. And yesterday, on my front steps, I saw a man drive by in his car by himself with the windows down, wearing a face mask. And to me, I think there's a big correlation between what the mentality is for a lot of people scared to death of this virus and Bird Box. There's a lot of talk about keeping our children safe, but it goes beyond keeping them physically safe. As I was sitting here, I looked up the number of children from the ages of 0 to 18 who have died of COVID. And you would think from the fear that we hear from everybody that it's in the thousands, but it's actually around 400 children nationwide. And every life does matter, but so does the mental health of the other children who are alive here today. The hybrid school last year was a nightmare. My daughter is a straight A honor student, really struggled. I'm sorry, I'm trying to collect my thoughts here. Researchers have repeatedly found the risk of severe illness and death from COVID in children to be very low. Dying from the virus in numbers does not justify the hysteria we're seeing that's on par with, people driving in cars by themselves with the mask. Suicide attempts among adolescent girls aged 12 to 17, especially young girls, surged more than 50% during the pandemic, according to the CDC. Everyone is a proponent of masking and social distancing, following the science, but I rarely see anyone actually look at the data. The COVID fatality rate in Ohio is 1.80%. The case rate is less than 10%. The state COVID fatality rate is 0.18%. That's all of the ages. The numbers do not justify the hysteria. Forcing children to wear masks for 5 to 7 hours a day in the classroom, and then for those 10,000 bus riders, an additional 1 to 2 hours a day, is cruel and unusual punishment, in my opinion. And I would just ask you to think about the effects that masks have on children beyond making everyone feel safer. They dehumanize children. They impede social interaction and social skills at a pivotal developmental stage in their lives. They impede the development of linguistic skills in young children. They cause headaches. They make it difficult to concentrate. Additionally, the risk of falls is greatly increased. Emotional and mental health are compromised. And, little side note, masks are filthy at the end of the day. Analysis of face masks worn by children were done by some parents, and a nice little list of 11 dangerous pathogens were on these masks: pneumonia, tuberculosis, meningitis, sepsis, keratitis, something I can't pronounce, sorry, pneumonia, bloodstream infections, meningitis, food poisoning, Borrelia burgdorferi that causes Lyme disease, Legionnaire's disease, Staphylococcus, severe infections, high morbidity rates, and then meningitis and sepsis, a different kind than what I mentioned earlier. So I would just like you to consider all of these variables. For me, dealing with someone who has some serious mental health issues that were exacerbated by the hybrid learning and the isolation and the face masks, I'm not just speaking for her, I'm speaking for all children. Masks are not a fit for everybody, so please consider all of these. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And our last speaker for this evening is Ann Schroyer.
Well done on my name. Thank you, school board members and Superintendent Kellogg. Appreciate the chance to speak. I just wanted to come as an offer a note of thank you for requiring the mask. As someone had previously said, it was a sigh of relief when I read that last week. Thank you very much. I'm relatively new to the district. My son has made friends while wearing masks because he didn't know anybody pre-pandemic, really. He is a social bug, but I mean, he's managed to do it. So I know he may be an outlier statistically, though. So again, I'm as Dr. Nestor Baker said, I'm also not a fan of wearing masks. I don't like hats on my head either, but I need to wear one for the sun. But I do wear it for my community, for my tiny unvaxxed kiddo, for my brother-in-laws who are both first responders, who don't have a choice in who they deal with day to day. And for anyone at higher risk, I have family members who've dealt with cancer in the past year, and I definitely wore it for them. I would have probably worn it pre-pandemic for them because of what they were dealing with. So I just wanted to say thank you. I can't remember who the Dirty Penny's name was, but she mentioned polio, and I have a great aunt whose father, my great uncle, had polio, and so she remembers being quarantined. She still has an album of all the cards she received from her classmates while she had to stay home. She's a very high-functioning retired nurse, and she's done okay. And so we're all in this together, and we can all support each other. So I just want to say thank you again so much for valuing the health and wellness of our children and our community, and I appreciate the chance to speak. Thank you so much.
Thank you. As we continue with our agenda for this evening, agenda item 13.01, board comments. Who would like to go first? Why don't we start at the end of the alphabet instead of the beginning? Mr. Velardo,
Yes, sir.
board comments.
The notes I made to myself, I tried to take notes while everyone was speaking to honor what you were saying, and so I could try to think through it and so on. And the first note I made to myself was, I am really thankful for all of you coming here and speaking so directly and courteously, because there's some pretty divergent opinions here. And we have seen meetings lately, just flip on YouTube and watch Board of Education meetings. It's a party out there. And I got to tell you, I'm really thankful, even if I disagree with something you said. I'm just very grateful for the courteous way that you have shared your opinion. Some of you, I suspect all of you, but some of you have directly said thank you to us, trying to do what we're doing, and election year and all that jazz. And I'm grateful for that, but it's really, I want to thank you for advocating for your children. A speaker mentioned, if you have children, she said something, if you have children, all of us have children or grandchildren in the district. And all of us, I've been in Westerville 30 years. I've been a parent of an elementary, middle, high, and a graduate. So I've kind of seen the gamut, and still there. And if it's true, I'll just speak for me. It is true for me that I have tried to listen to as many perspectives as I can. Meeting with people, met with a group of students, I told you, and just tried to hear perspective. I think the decision that we have made is the right decision. And my goal is to get the kids in and to keep them in all year long, and keep them as safe and healthy as we can. And I recognize that that's not universally agreed to, and that's okay. I want to call out the challenge to us to not let this be a one and done decision. I'm trying to say to you from my perspective, it's not a one and done decision. That I know Dr. Kellogg, Ms. Marshall, the team are always looking at the data, and I will personally say that, again, just me, speaking for me, I will try to stay on top of that and continue to look and continue to meet and talk with people, should you choose to do that. I'll buy the coffee. Because if anything else, I am trying to hear you. if even when we leave Panera or wherever, we disagree. I'm trying to honor your position and then make a decision, because that's why I was elected. And I take that responsibility very seriously. I have a couple more things, President Bell, but I think I'm going to leave it at that for right now.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Davidson?
Thank you. I just want to highlight that we were able to congratulate and honor some graduates tonight. That was probably not an easy road, and that's really why we're here, to help all children succeed. So it was an honor to be able to do that, and a big shout out to them. As all kiddos walk into buildings, we have some highlights that I just think we need to throw out there. We have walls at Amherst. We have new safe entryways at a lot of our schools. We have a renovation going on at South. We really have so many more positive things happening. And we have over 15,000 kids that are so excited to come back, and our staff members are too. So I want to think of those positive things. I also want to thank all of the speakers tonight, as well as all of the people that took time to email us and share their thoughts. I read each and every email. I heard every word you said tonight. I hear you. I will go home and process it. I probably won't sleep all week, because this is, it's not easy. I completely get it. So I just want to say thank you. And I want to say, let's have a great school year. And that's it.
Thank you. Ms. Altman?
Thank you. Excuse me. For those of you who don't know, I have a chronic cough, so if you heard me hacking up here, that's what's going on. So I want a couple of things. I know Ms. Davidson already said it, but congratulating graduates is one of the greatest things that we get to do. It really is. And to see young people who persevere and come through these years with us, it's really an honor. So congratulations to all of the summer graduates. We really are proud of you. And thank you for all of your hard work, and just wish you all the best, and don't be strangers in the future. And then, of course, we have retirees, and we have new staff coming on board. And so all of these transitions at this time of year, appreciating new people and thanking the people who are leaving us for all their good work. And for the many folks who are getting classrooms and buildings ready in a time that's a little more complicated to do that, right? It takes additional work. And we rely on them. When kids come in with some of the issues that some of our speakers mentioned, that we know we had kids for whom the last year was especially hard. We have kids who had real trauma over the last year, and that always weighs heavily on me, and I think, speaking of my colleagues, on all of us when decisions like this have to be made. So I also want to thank the administration, who ultimately, is responsible, Dr. Kellogg and Ms. Marshall and everyone else, for pulling together what is, frankly, we are in a pandemic that no one's ever been through before. There have been pandemics before. Thank you, Ms. Stuffy, for reminding us of that. But everyone is different, and the Delta variant is different from what we faced last year, and we are all in the middle of trying to understand that. So I'm a scientist by training, and that's one of the things that I rely on, is looking at data. But when you are in the middle of a natural experiment, it's not always clear 100% what the data are telling you. And so we are doing our best to sift through that. But that is what we are all living through right now. So I appreciate all of your words. And that is folks who agree with me and folks who may not agree with decisions that are made. Really, like some of my colleagues have said, we really do hear you, and we really do lose sleep over your words and weighing, trying to make the best decision for the most people. And I will tell you, actually, I just had one graduate. I was going to say I have 3 kids in the district, but it's only 2. One's headed off to college. Sometimes that means making decisions that the people in our house wish we weren't making. And that is something we all live with. So thank you for sharing your perspectives, and thank you for doing what you can to help kids be ready for this year, to help them be as excited they can about the fact that we're all living in the middle of this pandemic, in the middle of this natural experiment. And just appreciate your time and your words and your energy and passion and your caring, because that's what I heard from everybody. I heard every speaker tonight caring about someone, and lots of someones, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Dr. Nestor Baker.
Wondered where I fell in the alphabet.
Vice President. We
Okay,
get to
all
go
right, we
last.
go last. All right. Peg, your words about polio really hit home. My father-in-law was a polio victim. You knew him. He spent time in an iron lung after he contracted polio while he was a student at Otterbein. It changed his life in so many ways, and it eventually shortened his life substantially. So all of us, and I first came to know him when I was in my teens, and all of us who grew up with that damage and that incredible resilience understood at a visceral level what polio did. And it's something that none of us who ever saw its impact or felt its impact ever want to see again. I remember even after the polio epidemic was subsiding, after the vaccine came out, how we all lined up as children, and our parents were so eager for us to have those little droplets. They were on sugar cubes then. Those little droplets on sugar cubes that were given to us so that we wouldn't end like that. Yeah, it affects your thinking. In some ways, I think it broadens our thinking, and in other ways, I think for me, I have always fought the fear that comes with that. So I think about polio. I think about my elderly uncle talking to me this weekend about all the children who died that he knew from measles, from diphtheria, from polio, and how all of those tombstones in the cemeteries for children diminished after those vaccines came out. I think about that a lot too. I think about how when I was a child, vaccines were and of course. And I think about our discussions now in our country and how incredibly lucky we are to have them. We are blessed beyond measure to be able to have the kind of debates that we do and to look at the data in all of its different formats and its different ways. And we are blessed because of all that went before that most of us did not have to deal with. I thank you all for coming tonight. I do thank you so much for your courtesy. I can hear you because of that. Your words resonate because of that. I thank you for bringing your thoughtful approach to us. The information that you share matters. Whichever side of this particular issue around masks you are on, what you say matters. And it is all weighed in the balance. And as Mr. Villardo said, eventually decisions must be made. And even after the decisions are made, luckily in this case, it isn't a decision that is finite. It is a decision that will evolve. And I am very thankful for that because I struggle with the decisions because of all of the information that is there and all of the data to process and all of the differing viewpoints and all of the differing needs. I do abide by the decision of the district as regards what we're doing now. And I do so in the absolute belief that we will not stay this way. And I say that not because of the last year, the changes that we saw that were made, but because of polio and measles and all of the things that we have all faced as a human race in learning how to deal with pandemics and learning how to deal with disease and learning how to deal with germs. We will come through this. We will come out of this. And I am absolutely convinced that the mask will come off. But until we identify a better path through, I will abide by the constraints, even though those are difficult. So thank you. We thanked a lot of people tonight, and it's all heartfelt from all of us. So come back, stay with us, know you're heard, know you're read, know you're listened to, because we are, whatever position we take, all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just like to share, first of all, to add my voice to the chorus, to thank each of you for taking time out of your, what I know are busy schedules, to be here tonight to share your perspective as it relates to this issue. So thank you. Your positions are heard, as you have already heard shared here this evening. We read each email, and all of that is considered as we move forward in the decision-making process. So thank you for sharing your perspectives, and thank you for being here. I would also like to congratulate again the graduates this evening. We are excited for them and for all of the many tremendous opportunities that now await them as high school graduates. So we want to celebrate and thank them. I also want to take a moment to especially thank Dr. Kellogg, Ms. Marshall, and all of the members of the administrative staff. You have put in very long hours, and we are very appreciative of all of the hard work and dedication that you express on a daily basis as it relates to the children in the Westerville City School District. We know it's not an easy task. We are facing once in a century global pandemic. And this will be the third academic year that is being affected by COVID. And I want to especially say thank you to you, because we know that the decisions that are being made weigh heavily on you as we make these decisions. And so we want you to know that we are aware of that, and just want you to know how much we truly, truly appreciate all of your efforts. So thank you. And I'll just end by saying I know that this new school year is beginning under certainly less than ideal circumstances, but I look forward to working together with the staff, with the parents, with the students, and the broader community to make this a successful school year for our students. So we certainly thank you and appreciate you, and looking forward to taking the lemons that we have been given and make lemonade. So we look forward to a successful school year. So thank you very much. Did you have something else? Okay. Okay. Moving on to agenda item 14.01, time, dates, and locations of the next meeting. The board will meet in regular session on Monday, August the 23rd, 2021, at 6 o'clock p.m. at the Early Learning Center located at 936 Eastwind Drive, Westerville, Ohio, 43081. And with that, moving on to agenda item 15, adjournment. May I please have a motion and a second to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Ms. Marshall, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes. And we are adjourned.
8:09.